Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for the Expanse Season 4, Episode 3, Subduction. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of the Expanse, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for the Expanse up to Season 4, Episode 3. If you haven't seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. However, this video will not contain spoilers beyond Season 4, Episode 3, as I have not seen beyond this point as of the recording of this video. Also, please do not leave spoilers in the comment section for beyond Episode 3 unless you use the proper spoiler tags. Cool. So, yeah, this episode was okay. It's more of furthering the story. It's one of those necessary sort of link in the chain type episodes. Which, it's interesting. It's just not remarkable. It's not like the best thing ever. But it contributes to the season. Anyway, we get the... let me start with the Ellis storyline, and I think this is starting to do a better job of establishing Mercury and his men as being not the best people, and Mercury in particular. That scene with Amos at the end, I think, really sums it up really nicely. That Amos is just like, I know who you are, you're a killer. And that's basically showing who he is. But he's claiming to do it. He's claiming to have the law on his side. He's claiming to have, righteousness on his side. And so you see how this episode in particular, this storyline in particular, has a real Western feel to it. Because the book most certainly did. And I think that's translating to the screen as well. How you got that sort of frontier feel where there's no established governments or laws. And so people kind of take the law into their own hand and act as the law. So you see Mercury he's spying on the people, and he gathers intel that they're planning another terrorist attack. So when they're having their secret meeting, he shoots them all, which is pretty fucking brutal. And then, so I think it is going a bit further to establish that. Plus, I love Amos's, matter-of-fact attitude. And plus, he's used to being such the biggest badass around that no one really stops him. He's like, I need this power converter. You guys have one. You're not using it. I'm going to go grab it. And the guys are like, actually, no. You can't fucking have that. We're under orders that these belong to RCE, and this is our property. You're not allowed to use it. And Amos is like, okay. He drops on the guy's foot and kicks his ass. I absolutely love that. And oh my god, that scene was so funny when Wei comes out and she's like, you can't do this. I'm going to have to tell my boss I work for him. And Amos is just like, oh, so that means we can't fuck anymore? And I used to laugh at that. It was just so Amos, and she's like, yeah, sure we can, but don't do this. That was great. Amos is just he's so simple, but in a really lovable way, and he's a brutish killer. He's just he wants to get the shit done, so he gets it done. And again, that scene where Mercury confronts Amos about this and he's like, look, you can't do this. Amos is like, I see through your bullshit. I see you're saying you have the law, you have property. It's not really about that. It's about you being a killer. And if you try this shit with me or my people, you're going to regret it. And of course, Mercury has that line where he says, I think you and I are going to end up bloody one day. Foreshadow. And so that's building up something really interesting with them. My only complaint now, because I was complaining before, I don't think they were doing enough to develop Mercury, and now I think they're doing a better job of sort of setting the stage. My only complaint is the lack of Holden. That Holden's not really involved in it very much. It's just Amos. We at least Holden gets aware of the situation in this episode because, Amos tells him about how Mercury just shot a guy in cold blood and nobody does anything about it. And so Holden's aware, but he's just too preoccupied with, like, the proto-molecule stuff, which again makes complete sense. I just think maybe the story should have postponed this proto-molecule shit happening so Holden could get more involved in the Mercury storyline, but whatever. And then we had Naomi confront Mercury, which is really interesting. But of course, Naomi, it's kind of, I mean, it is a storyline we see a lot where someone is ill and they're too prideful and they refuse to admit it. And it frustrates me just because, from a realistic standpoint, that attitude bothers me. Like, I don't think it's out of character for Naomi, and I don't think it's like bad storytelling or anything like that. It's just on a personal level, she's being stubborn. I'm like, Naomi, stop being so damn stubborn. Just go back to the damn ship. And so we get this ticking clock situation where Lucia is basically like, you gotta go back into orbit, otherwise you're gonna end up like, because we had a whole bunch of people get sick and 2 of them died, and I'm telling you, you're gonna be just like that. So we may have to get, Naomi may have to exit, but it's an interesting quandary for Naomi because, of course, she's right in the middle. They're in the middle of this crisis situation that Holden and Amos and her friends are dealing with, and she doesn't want to abandon them. So I think that's actually a really interesting storyline, a really interesting quandary, which, by the way, none of this happened in the books. Naomi was never on the planet. So I like the choice to have her on the planet. I think it's very interesting, and it's adding a lot to this particular storyline. Now, the thing with Miller, this kind of frustrates me with Holden, because just talk to Miller. It's always frustrating when characters in the show or movie or whatever could solve things or maybe learn more if they just talk to each other, but for some reason they refuse to talk to them. Like, in this, Alex is like, maybe you should be alone, so you should talk to Miller. And I was thinking, yes, you should do that, but Holden's like, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna act on my own without any information. Sure, that's gonna end up well. Like, we always know that ends up well when people just act on instinct without any information, without consulting people who may know vital information you may need to have. So it's obviously an idiot move. And to be clear, I don't know from the books exactly what's going to happen. I don't know. I just going off the show itself, that's always a stupid move. You don't do that. And again, so Holden's being frustrating because he's being a bit prideful and refusing to just talk to fucking Miller. I mean, and it does kind of throw me out that Miller told him to turn the shit on, and then the shit ended up starting to wreak havoc. I mean, it seems like, yeah, at the very least, you should go to Miller and be like, what the fuck? Why'd you tell me? And instead of Holden's taking the attitude of, oh, I don't trust him, he's not working in our interest. But he should have learned his lesson from season 3, when Miller was actually looking out for him. So, I don't know. That frustrates me a little bit too. So then we'll move on to the Alva Serala storyline, and Nancy Gal apparently is going to become her next political opponent because she wants to go full on exploring the gates, while Alva Serala is being very more cautious and refusing to do it. And Nancy Gal tries to be all civil about it, but Alva Serala, she just cuts through the bullshit. And when Nancy Gal was resigning. Now, again, I totally am gonna fail at not talking about the books. I'm sorry. I do apologize. I just can't help it. But it's interesting that in the books, Nancy Gal was the UN Secretary General, that Alva Serala actually helped get her elected. And so Alva Serala wasn't the Secretary General at this stage. So the show has completely different dynamic. In fact, like, the character never actually appeared in the book. She was just mentioned. So they kind of took that concept and they're doing something totally different. Now, I do love the political theater, the scheming, and that Alva Serala isn't immune to that. That she's willing to discredit. She's found something that's a blemish on her record, and she's slowly releasing it to the press. Now, we've seen Alva Serala do this before with discrediting Jules Pierre-Mal and the Pernal Molecule. In that case, we're all completely on board because Jules Pierre-Mal was a bit despicable and he needed to be exposed. But to see the same thing with a political opponent who just has a different viewpoint, who's not necessarily a villain or doing anything wrong, yeah, it's I like it because it does show. I've heard some people say they didn't like Ellis Storyline's storyline this season because it made them not like her as much, but I do. I mean, because Alva Serala was totally awesome. She was a badass in the first 2 seasons, but she's still a politician, and she still has that dark side to her. I mean, remember how she was when the show first started? She was torturing belters. So I think it totally makes sense, and I'm loving this exploration of her character going into dark places where she's a character of gray. I think gray characters rather than typical hero characters are more interesting. But anyway, and I still don't like this recast of Arjun. I'm sorry, I'm trying to accept him, but he's just, I don't like him. It's not that they recast the actor. They can recast the actor fine. I just don't like the guy that they got to replace him because he's too like swarmy and fake and ho 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 in the way they're all lovey-dovey. Old people aren't all lovey-dovey like that. They're old. They've been together for decades. It has a different dynamic, the kind of dynamic that the first actor had with her that really worked. But anyway, I'm sorry. God damn it. Anyway, let me get into the Bobby Draper storyline. So this is that chick who was like, you know, her nephew's girlfriend. Not really, but that's what he said. She's really annoying. She keeps saying, "Oh, you're in trouble now. You're fucked now." Shut up. Fuck, that really annoys me. But it turns out she is right to a degree, because the people that Bobby upset basically own everything. They work with the police. That was a really cool scene when Bobby was like, "I want to go to the police," and they're like, "Okay, we'll have you see this detective," and it's the same dude. And I recognize this dude from 24. I can't remember the name of the character he played on 24 for he was an asshole. I remember that. Yeah, I can't. It's been a while since I've seen that show. But, yeah, no, it's good. I like it. That was a really cool scene. And how Bobby did have to face facts that she had to do what he says. But you get the impression from that scene that she's, gathering her own information, building her own intel, and finding out that they're selling... This has something to do with the Belters, and they're also talking about her job is deconstructing Martian warships, which is interesting. They're having a lot of surplus items that are going to waste, and so it does make logical sense that there would develop a black market for this high-grade military equipment. So very, very interesting stuff. And I didn't know we didn't have any drummer or Ashford in this episode, which is kind of interesting. But I guess, you gotta stretch things, you pace things out throughout the season, which is good. So anyway, my rating for season 4, episode 3, Subduction, out of 10, I'm going to give this a 7. Very good. It's a decent episode. It's a good episode. Keeps things going. Lots of good character interactions. Helps flesh out Mercury more. Helps define the stakes. The per molecule shit acting up. But yeah, it wasn't nothing spectacular. Anyway, that's it for my review of season 4, episode 3 of The Expanse. I will, of course, be back shortly with my book show comparison for this episode, and next week we'll be back for my review of episode 4. So be sure to check that out. Also check out my channel as I cover many other shows like Star Trek and more, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. Thanks a lot for watching.